I figured I'd do a little extra video on this gravitational wave thingy story. Some just general about gravitational waves and some specific to this new event and what they're saying. Yeah, so the first part is I've always had a problem. So this is, I could find a better illustration, but the idea is these two things are spinning and somehow this wave is being created, that trails behind it. So this is the typical way they illustrate. Maybe there's some movement here. I'll play it from here and see.
Neutron stars.
See? So it spins and somehow it's producing this wave thing out of one end or something. So it's not coming out at 300. It's not coming out of the thing like a light bulb. It's coming out of its end. And if that were true, then one cycle would actually be two waves. So they don't even have the wavelength right. As you can see that if it's shooting it out the end of this object, then we'd see it. And then when the next object comes, we'd see it. So that would be only a half a cycle, and we'd see two and a half a cycle. So they don't even have the cycles right, or the wavelength of the wave right. So in this event, this new event, there was only 300 cycles. They say cycles. I don't know if they know what a cycle is, right? Cycle is only a half of 360. And it was up to hundreds of hertz by the end. So you only have 3,000 to work with, and the end has hundreds. So even that doesn't make a lot of sense. So anyway, I was just thinking about, so the thing is if these two things are rotating this way, okay, if you're seeing them on end, apparently, I don't know if this is true, we wouldn't see any gravitational wave. There wouldn't be any gravity coming off of it, because the gravity waves are only being produced this way, for this battery, and this way for this battery. I don't know. Is that the truth? And if it was pointed this way, though, we would have seen a huge gamma ray burst. But the idea was this thing apparently was on an angle. Now, a 30-degree angle. And so the gamma ray burst was small. That's what they're arguing. It was smaller than they would think it should have been. So if it's on an angle, I mean, if I rotate these two batteries at an angle, just imagine that it's emitting the gravity waves, and the green, seeing green means you're able to see the wave, the force. Now there's no point here that you don't see green, right? I mean, you see green all the time, and there's one point where you see just one green, but I mean, you see green all the time. There's no not green ever showing up. And so it's hard to come up with a good way of modeling it. But let's say the end of the batteries is what the green is, the energy is shooting out of. And so we're going to turn them, we're going to rotate them this way. And at 30 degrees. If we rotate them this way at 30 degrees, you can sort of see, you can't see what will come out at the end of the battery. If it was a bullet, you know it would miss you. Right? At 30 degrees, it's not going to hit you. You'll never see the gravity wave. So they can't have it both ways. They can't turn the thing and then say the gravity is still hitting them if they're saying it comes out of, say if the two things are this way, the gravity is supposed to be coming out of these sides. See, so you get hit by it there, so the two are lined up, and then it'd be lined up again here, and you get hit by it. But that wouldn't be a full cycle. That'd only be a half cycle. That'd only be 180 degrees between the bursts of gravity wave. So at 30 degrees, that won't work. So then you have to have some other explanation for where this burst of gravity wave is coming out of. What's its source? Because like I say, if I just rotate something, you don't see less green. There's no absence of green. And if I hold the batteries this way and turn them, you can sort of see, obviously, that never changes. You always see the same amount of green. It never The green never goes away. And theoretically, even when they're lined up this way, gravity goes right through stuff. It's not like light. So why wouldn't it go through these objects and just make the gravity stronger? That's what would happen if I put these two batteries next to each other. The gravity doesn't get weaker here or weaker here. It gets stronger. So even that doesn't make sense. It's not like light. You can't block it by moving in front of the other guy. You can't block the gravity wave that way. So as they're rotating, you'd always see the same amount of green, technically. Because even when it's behind it, you're still going to get the gravity. You can't block gravity. You can't. So where's the wave come from? Where's the on-off? Where's the cycle they're seeing? How can they see a cycle of gravity? It's not possible. All you can see is, you can make the argument, this is stronger gravity towards you, because there's two things, and this is a little bit weaker, okay, because it's spread out a little bit more. But it'd be a tiny difference at 130 million light years. These things are only a few hundred miles apart, maybe even less, maybe 50 miles apart. How could you see two things 130 million light years away? How could you see the difference between this and this? You can't. It's not possible, because the gravity isn't blocked. So none of that makes any sense. Alright. I think that's a good enough illustration. But like I said, if it is as they draw it, that is, the gravity shoots out of the outside end. You know, it's like these two things are spinning and the gravity shoots out of the end. Then if I tilt it at 30 degrees, you ain't going to see what's shooting out of that end, are you? Nope. Not going to see it. So that doesn't work. Alright. That doesn't work. Doesn't make any sense. And the amount of energy this is, again, this gravity is a huge amount. So we don't have any lensing from this wave. This 100-second long wave, I would say it'd have to be just a blob, but they're saying they're seeing a frequency. A frequency of what? How? How do you see it? How do you see that difference? How do you see the difference between this and this? How do they do that? Because it can't be coming out it can't be coming out of one side. Because you tilt that 30 degrees and the gravity waves couldn't get to us. They're directional then. It's just these inconsistencies. It just doesn't work. Alright, so I'll go to the Wikipedia page, just read a couple of funny things. I thought they were funny. Alright, so, I've argued that some of this stuff just seems, oh, isn't that special? It's very special that the universe is constructed in such a way as that when it does its most dramatic energy event, it just happens to produce the most benign form of energy possible, so we don't get we don't get annihilated. It's just one of those. Isn't the universe special and friendly? That it spared us that way. But anyway, it is not known what object was produced by the merger. So apparently this event is not something they're familiar with enough, this merging of two neutron stars, that they actually know what the byproduct is, what you have after it's done. And this one especially was apparently of sizes that they don't have a clue. And so they say candidates are a neutron star heavier than any known neutron star. So the one choice is something never seen before, or a black hole lighter than any known black hole. So our choice is something never seen before, or something never seen before. Yeah. So isn't it just so special that we figured out how to make one of these interferometers just in time, where the fifth event or whatever, sixth event of finding something special just happens to be something so special that it did something we don't know the universe could even do. It's some kind of weird thing where it either is the impossible black hole or the impossible neutron star. Isn't that, it's just so special. You know, that it just turns out that way, that we invent this thing just in time to see some event that may never happen again because it makes something totally unknown. So there has to be something, you know, engineered in here somewhere, right? There's some facts that don't fit, or they wouldn't have that as an explanation. There must be some facts that aren't what they thought they should be for them to say, we don't know what was left over. Alright, then they said a total of 16 times the mass of the Earth in heavy elements is expected to be formed, including about 10,000 Earth masses of gold and platinum. So apparently more gold and platinum is created than all the other heavy elements combined. You know, and that's also convenient, right? That it's very nice of the universe to create gold and platinum instead of like arsenic and lead, you know, and all the other poisonous shit, mercury and, you know, all that kind of crap. So yeah, thank you again, universe. Gee, it's so special of you to make sure that most of the stuff you create when you do one of these explosions is gold and platinum, and not boring stuff like silver, lead, uranium, you know, all the other heavy elements. So this did get me thinking a little bit about, you know, just that. So this event of, you know, 2.5, let's say, solar masses in total. That's the total amount of mass, 2.5 solar masses. Somehow made 16,000 times the Earth's mass worth of heavy elements. So, not energy. So it made a whole bunch of this not energy, like 1% of the total mass. And then it has enough masses left over to create all these gravity waves, and then it has mass left over to create all the gamma rays, the huge gamma ray bursts. I mean, you do have to ask a question somewhere. Aren't you making more stuff than you started with? You know, is this really E equals mc squared somewhere in here? Or are you breaking conservation somewhere? Because this stuff is still burning. So this is the other part, right? So it was 6 days later, Hubble looked at it. 9 days later, they saw X-rays. 16 days later, they did some other radio telescope thing. So these are days later, tons of energy spewing still, you know, from these two solar masses. You know, so if there is something left over, they should have had a third choice for something left over, and the thing left over would be, you know, the wrapper for a hamburger or something, a little bit of wax paper or something, because apparently, yes, they are using everything, you know, to make all this crap that they're making. So yeah, that just seemed a little strange. So it seems very strange that they don't know what the byproduct is, since they know everything else. They've made up a story about everything else. I don't know why they just don't make up a story about what was left over. I still haven't had any explanation for how exactly this happens. That this, where matter is so disrupted that it creates gravity, but it's not disrupted enough to create any other electromagnetic signature. So there's no gamma rays or X-rays or anything else produced in any bursty way while it's spewing gravity. Somehow that's supposed to make sense. Doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, so 9 days later the source was observed in the X-rays. I don't know what it just says it was observed. Doesn't say what they saw, which is also kind of funny. But anyway. So what else do I need to say on this? I'm sure there was some other little bit of stuff, but I mean, I'm really still stuck on exactly how, like I said, their model just has this idea. You see it. It's like every time the thing goes around, it's spewing this little wave thingy. Nothing does that. Nothing creates a trace. It's not how stuff moves. And if it's spewing it just out of one end, like I said, then at 30 degrees, you're not going to see anything from the gravity end. So it's a real problem. I mean, if it's really on edge and you get the full gravity, you get none of the gamma rays. And again, if you tilt it, then you're not going to get enough of the gravity and not enough of the gamma rays. So it just doesn't match. You should get, you know, there's no solution to that problem once you make this gravity directional. It's not like a light bulb. It's not coming out of the neutron stars evenly in all directions. Somehow the gravity is just coming out in one direction. Apparently. That's what the drawings indicate. The illustrations. And again, that would be something you'd have to crunch those numbers, because I would still argue then if you're concentrating the amount of gravity, then if I go back to the black hole example, where 3 solar masses were released, 3 solar masses in a directed path. So now you're really making the bullet a bullet. So that was something I sort of wanted to say. You know, I was thinking about it in context of explosions and trying to understand what they're talking about. So when you concentrate something, it's like a gun. So when you fire a gun, what's really happening is there's an explosion. Now, if I had the explosion just in the air, all right, I would get some little bits of gunpowder would stick to me. I'd definitely hear it, and I'd feel probably some little impact wave. But the point is that the explosion's going the whole sphere around the explosion, so it's dispersed everywhere. Now if I put a bullet in the gun, if I put the explosion in a gun with a bullet, then the explosion, well see, let's not put the bullet in, let's just have the explosion in the gun. Well, now the barrel of the gun's going to focus it some, but it's still going to spread out quite a bit. So it's going to be dispersed. So I'll definitely feel more pop, probably more sound too will end up going towards me, and I'll get more gunpowder on me for sure. Now if I put a bullet in there, what happens? Well, what's really happening is the impact of the force now, the explosion, doesn't go in all the other directions anymore. It reflects off the steel of the gun, the pressure pushes in and it pushes back again. And so the explosion gets concentrated and forced right into the bullet. So now instead of the explosion going this way out, right? It's going right into the bullet. So the bullet's carrying the impact of the whole explosion. And so what the bullet's really doing, it's just conveying the explosion to me in its full form, taking all the stuff that went in all the other directions and now giving it all just to me. So it just converts the R squared thing into like a laser beam. It turns the explosion into a laser beam explosion. The bullet's just a little conduit for that process. It just carries the force. So it takes all the force of the explosion in all directions and turns it into one vector. And so the bullet's just carrying. So it's just carrying the explosion to me personally. So now the explosion happens right on me. Instead of way over there, it happens right here. It just takes that explosion, brings it over here, and basically puts a cover over it and makes sure it all goes inside of me. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. And it's a way of thinking about it that I hadn't thought about it in that way before. In that you're just conserving the explosion and taking all of its momentum and giving it one vector. Alright, but that's a consequence with this gravitational waves. Because if I narrow them to a plane, and they're only shooting out on one plane, you know, the flat plane of the rotation, you know, and that's the only plane they're shooting out on, well, that's a huge difference than having the gravity waves going in all these directions. So instead of going in all these directions, it's just shooting out of one end, you know, the ends. That's a huge multiplication of the force. Just like having the explosion 10 feet away and putting a bullet in the gun. Huge difference. And anything in the area should be, you know, substantially impacted by the force of that wave, that stuff shooting out, if it can get all the way here and shake the Earth. At the inverse square law kind of rules, going by 130 million light years away, if it's shaking the Earth 130 light years away, it's a huge amount of photons. So just imagine how many it would equal within the vicinity. And galaxies shouldn't even survive these events. The stars should be scattered all over the place if they're really producing all of this hidden, invisible energy. It's producing much more invisible energy than visible energy, like thousands of times more. Again, the illustration would be gravity moves me 10 meters per second per second. So in 1 second, gravity would push me 10 meters. Just think about how many photons it would take to move you 10 meters in 1 second. I mean, it would have to be a laser beam of, hugely powerful light that pushed me that fast in 1 second. 10 meters in 1 second. So just get some appreciation. To shake the Earth is a huge amount of energy to move the Earth enough to change how much the mirrors move. And so all of that hidden energy, all that invisible energy, was produced by this event. And we're to believe that everything in the vicinity didn't get completely disrupted. I mean, I can't even give you a calculation of how incredible it would be to be anywhere near this thing. And isn't that also convenient that all of these events happen millions of light years away? None of them happen 4 or 5. Because yes, if they did, we'd be screwed. Alright, I don't think there's much else to say. Just doesn't, this shit doesn't make any sense. I mean, it just needs to be more than this Wikipedia page kind of depth to all of the theoretical crap that they've based this on. I mean, it's based on so much mush, and but we don't even have clear answers to these simple questions. Like I'm saying, how directed are they saying this gravity spews out? When this neutron star starts leaking all of this gravity wave stuff, where's it leaking out of? Because like I said, their animations imply that it's coming right out of the one side, the side that's the outside of the spin. And again, at 30 degrees, you're not going to see any of those waves. Alright, enough. So, till the next time. This isn't the way science should be. Nope. I mean, they shouldn't be this aggressive when it's all theoretical and so little of it has any hard, tangible, real evidence.